Good morning and welcome to the Friday session on the third week of the public hearings in the online platforms market inquiry. Today we're beginning with Samsung and we are joined from Seoul as well as South Africa. That will be followed by Price Check, which is a comparison shopping site, and then Red Puppy, an e-commerce store. Maybe just to inform the public as to how we're wrapping up the public hearings. On Monday morning, we have two food delivery platforms, Parl Eats and Driver. So that'll run from 10 till 12 on Monday morning. And then on Monday the 29th at 3:30 p.m., we have Rebossa and Take a Lot going into the evening to 7:30, and that should wrap up all the public hearings. So let me welcome the Samsung team from both Johannesburg and Seoul. Ms. Wang, I believe you'll introduce the team and who we have available. Let me pass over to you.
Good morning, Chair. So Mark Robler will be introducing the Samsung South Africa team today. Thank you very much, Chair. Apologies, Chair, for that. So by way of introduction or to start the hearing, thank you very much once again for this opportunity for rescheduling this public hearing session. So today on the team, I'll be introducing the Samsung South Africa team. So we have Justin Hume, which is the head of RM. Then we have David Monker, who is a senior professional in the market and technical group. And we have Duduzile Mokolo, who is the Chief Marketing Officer. So today we will be presenting, Justin Hume will be presenting on behalf of the portion for Samsung South Africa. I will now hand over to HQ, which her name is Jasan Kim, who will be introducing the HQ team. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Good morning. My name is Jasan Kim, and I'm a senior legal counsel at Samsung Electronics. It is our great pleasure to be here to share Samsung's Galaxy Store business to the people in South Africa. Before introducing my colleagues from the head office, I would like to say a few words by way of introduction. First, I would like to thank Mr. Chairperson and the panel members for organizing this hearing and for being so kindly flexible in accommodating our availability. We would like to emphasize that we deeply appreciate and welcome very much for this opportunity to assist the inquiry and address the issues which the people in South Africa might be interested to hear from us. As the Commission has kindly shared the topics and issues for us to cover today, we have arranged for our colleagues who we believe would be the best people to answer those shared inquiries. If there are any questions which require confidential information or fall outside a speaker's direct knowledge, we are happy to take questions away and provide written submissions upon request. As the interpreter has not been arranged, as we have asked for the Commission's understanding, during the Q&A session, there might be moments when need the in-house counsel's translation of questions being asked or answers thereof. We appreciate. Let me introduce my colleagues from the head office. First, Stacy Byun, a senior product manager of Galaxy Store team. Next, Harim No, a manager of a business development team. Also, I'm here with Taeyeon Kim, a senior legal counsel of the legal team. The introducing of head office members ends here, and if Mr. Chairperson allows us to proceed, Stacy from the head office will start the presentation on Galaxy Store. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kim. And I do want to also extend our appreciation that Samsung has accommodated the session in the public hearings. I know it's become Friday evening in Seoul, and I appreciate that your team is available to us at this late hour where you are. So we welcome your submission, and I'll allow Ms. Stacey Bunn to proceed with the presentation. You can load it up and then talk through it.
Chair, sorry, sorry, it's Dominic Otero from Worksman's assisting Samsung. I'll put up the presentation now and share content.
Thank you, Dominic.
Hello, Mr. Chairperson. Sorry for the annoying. I'm Stacey Pian, a senior product manager of the Galaxy Store. And first of all, I'm glad to be here in this morning in your time with all of your members to share the history and detailed story of the Galaxy Store. Next, please. Dominic, sorry, can you just go to the next page, please?
Sure. Just trying to move it along.
Thank you. As you might know, Galaxy Store is a content store which operated by Samsung and providing Samsung manufactured smart devices. Before I begin to start to share a detailed story of the store, I'd like to share a short and brief video clip of the Galaxy Store. Let's play the video. Thank you. As you can see in the video, Galaxy Store team is now working with partners to provide good quality of content to the Galaxy Store users. Yeah, next please. Yeah, our journey has started in 2010 when Samsung started to launch smart devices with Galaxy brand with the name of Samsung Apps. And Samsung Apps tried to improve the quantity of application to attract users, so there was a problem of app quality, which made Galaxy Apps team to be struggled. So after this season, finally on 2014, Samsung decided to change the concept and to rebrand the Samsung Apps as a boutique and market with selective and qualitative application was the name of Samsung Galaxy Apps. However, for users using smart devices, there are various types of contents for smart devices, not just application. For example, Samsung provides content which can decorate a device, such as wallpaper. However, those kinds of contents had provided in separate store Galaxy themes, so a user needed to check different stores based on the type of contents they want to use. To minimize these inconvenience of users, in 2019, we launched Samsung Galaxy Store by integrating various types of contents such as themes and Bixby capsule, and finally became a unified content store for Galaxy device users. Not just gathering all contents, but we tried to provide those efficiently to help users find wanted contents easily, so we introduced a recommendation system as well. Through this journey, we've tried to maximize the benefit for Galaxy device users. So I'd like to introduce major features and characters of the store and how we are now helping users. Next, please. First of all, Galaxy Store consists of two sections, namely games and apps. For the first section, games, selected games are featured in various ways. Slightly more in detail, we are highlighting one game at a time in EGT section, which means the essential game pick at the top of the page with the video clips, which can represent the game and its benefit the most. And not only just providing launched contents, but we also give a highlight on coming soon games and user can do pre-register for them. Also, user prefer to refer other users' choices. So we are having ranking system section with 4 types of ranking by expecting to help user choose contents they want. And finally, we are introducing a new type of content, instant games, which do not require user to download content to play, but just can be played in the store immediately by clicking the icon. Next, please. And in app section, we are highlighting useful apps and Galaxy exclusive content to each user's device, as similar as we do in Games tab. Feature sections are working based on recommendation algorithm and providing most needed contents for users. And in theme section, we provide fun decoration contents to make users' device special. And last one, exclusive, provides dedicated contents for Galaxy devices, which created by first party, named with Made by Samsung, and created by third party, named with Made for Samsung. Galaxy Store do not actually focus on or support on users, but we do care a lot about another customer, our sellers. So we are truly believe that the Galaxy Store can grow when sellers run and make a good result on their business in our store. So we do have been providing Galaxy Store seller portal to support all this. Simply explaining, seller can upload, update, or modify their content through this seller portal. And when their contents are available in the store, sellers can track the performance of their contents in the store through the statistic menu as they want. And not just tracking any data, we also provide financial and sales report through the settlement section, so sellers could check any sales they made through the store. And also to maximize this business result and to reduce effort for sellers to manage contents, we provide some efficient tools as, for example, developers API or badges. And for sellers to run their business efficiently with the channel and functions, we also provide support channels for sellers to make them to understand the channel clearly and use it as they wish to. So we provide seller portal guide, policy menu, and a FAQ section. Also, one-on-one inquiry section are also provided. So with all this kind of effort, we try to help sellers run their business through the seller portal. Yeah, as explained till now, Galaxy Store has been renewed several times and now currently where we are. But the simple idea lying under all these changes to provide the most beneficial and needed content for users and to support sellers to expand their business through our store. As we've been doing, we will keep trying to make this simple idea to be realized through the store. Yeah, thank you for listening to my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Main.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and to the panel. As introduced previously, my name is Justin Hume. I look after the mobile business here in South Africa for Samsung. And I thought really today was an opportunity based on some of the questions that I know was proposed to us by the Commission, looking at part of the RFI, to address a few issues, but taking the lens or the perspective of a handset manufacturer. And hopefully that will add maybe a different dynamic to some of the thinking or enhance some of that current thinking. So Samsung Electronics South Africa, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of the Samsung Electronics company based out of Korea. And very much we're concerned with the sale and supply of consumer electronic goods. So those goods that basically plug into a wall, the TVs, washing machines and the like, and then the mobile category, which I look after in that regard. Dominic, thanks. Move. Obviously, as my colleagues in Korea announced, we've been running the Galaxy Store for more than 10 years, and it's utilized to offer both broad-ranging applications to the consumers, as well as some bespoke applications for Samsung products. And again, just we'd like to reinforce that we're an open system effectively to the various geographical regions wherever these developers might be found. And we look to operate an environment of inclusivity. Taking a look on the next slide to what's the actual handset market in South Africa, it's a fascinating environment. There's Just in the smartphone environment alone, excluding feature phones, there's over 22 active brands in our market, and that's before we consider additional devices like the wearable or hearable products. From a Samsung perspective, we note that the mobile network operator environment is by far our largest distribution partner. And it serves a very relevant purpose in South Africa because unlike other markets where it is predominantly cash-based sales and the handset purchase and the SIM purchase are disassociated, here in South Africa, we have the equipment installment program effectively on our postpaid business model. And so we work extensively with these mobile network partners. And I suppose giving consideration to where the Commission is coming from at this point in time, for the phone manufacturers and certainly an entity like Samsung, hardware and software optimization are our key grounds for competition and innovation. So we spend a lot of time thinking about how to bring innovation into the hardware that allows for better rendering of the applications, better operation of those applications. And some examples of that would be, you might have seen on our Galaxy S21 series as an example, we have 120 hertz refresh rate. I mean, that just makes it an incredible device for mobile gaming, coupled with Dolby Atmos sound, coupled with 5nm processors that drive artificial intelligence, neural processing units and the like. So that's really where our grounds of competition come from. And so I'd put to you that maybe that the operating system and the app availability associated with that is not, it's historically been important from the mobile handset perspective, but it's not a current basis of differentiation in the general sense, if I can put it that way. It's nonetheless critically important. That's why we partner with the likes of Android and Google. And we find that application developers publish pretty much across the operating environment. So there's a high degree of parity across the different systems. And really from our perspective these days is that the ecosystem interoperability is becoming a more fundamental ground of differentiation in the market. And by interoperability, I'm talking about how we have the seamless transition between what I start on my phone, I can continue on my tablet and complete on my computer. Thanks, Dom. Okay. So I think from a South African perspective, we've had a very strong history in terms of supporting local application development. We have done a number of what I'm calling here the developer lab partnerships. And I must just note my apologies, in the version sent there was a few errors here. It references University of Cape Town and University of Johannesburg. It's actually University of Western Cape and the Wits University. But nonetheless, we have programs for application and software development that we actively participate in. We have run 2 cohorts so far through these programs, and these are in partnership with other entities such as Microsoft and the like. Very much focused on how do we upskill young people in terms of being or having a competency in software development, particularly with the mobile mindset in that regard. And then we've also partnered with the Vega School of Advertising, where we've looked at theme and content design programs that they've been able to take that work that they've been actively engaged in and get that through into the public domain. And then, as you may be aware, Samsung used to run a number of different operating systems on our handsets, one of which was the Tizen operating system. That was part of our range up until 2018, whereafter we were consolidated under Android effectively. So that we supported a host of local developments in applications and like specifically for that platform up until that point in time. And then basically at a global level, we give access to local developers into our development portal, as well as the annual Samsung Developer Conference. So again, I think our HQ team spoke about an area of inclusivity. These local developers have free access to these platforms that are shared on a globalized basis from Samsung. And then looking at the Android OS enhancement, how do we actually create opportunity is through the additional APIs that are added for our mobile business. And developers can take advantage of this. And just to give an example is we have let's call it the vanilla Android platform. And into that, Samsung creates APIs that allow integration with our S Pen that is so well known in South Africa. It allows integration with our Knox security platform that is perfect for enterprise grade security. So we take the baseline platform and drive it to a new level. I referenced earlier on that we partner predominantly with the mobile operators in South Africa. And so from a content and services utilization perspective, we do have a program whereby we customize the handset, the interface of the handset with the leading mobile networks in South Africa, particularly around their homepage startup and browser homepage environment. So in the Vodacom case, as an example, your browser would point to Vodacom Live, which is a phenomenal source of both local and international applications and content. And then lastly, in terms of our support to South Africa, apart from the various programs I mentioned under application development, we see sustainability as a critical role in the mobile and electronics field. And as such, we've partnered strongly with the DTI around our e-waste management program that we rolled out 2 years ago. And that continues to back up the investment, if I can say, of Samsung into South Africa. So that's the end of it from my side. Hopefully that gave you a bit of context into the mobile handset perspective from Samsung South Africa.
Thank you very much, Justin. I think we'll proceed to questions, and I'm very happy if you call me James and my fellow panel member Doris. That helps make it less formal. The first question I had was just, as the Galaxy Store is on an Android device, I assume that a developer who's developed an app for the Play Store has to make no changes to put it on the Galaxy Store. They just have to sign an agreement with Samsung. Is that correct?
Yes, James, yes, all due respect on your question, yes, a developer doesn't need to make any changes on it.
And I just want to take the history before your relaunch and then the relaunch. But in the past, did many developers who listed on the Play Store, did most of them also list on the Galaxy Store, or was it only a fraction of them?
Mr. Chairperson, sorry, due to the IT issues, I couldn't hear your question clearly. Can you repeat once again, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Sure. I just want to ask, as developers did not need to do anything to list on Galaxy, did most of them also list on Galaxy in addition to the Play Store? So the question is, in the past, did most
sorry,
apps on
I have
Play
a little bit language difficulty. If you don't mind, may I ask my legal team to translate on this question? Thank you.
Mr. Chairperson, James, may we turn it off the mic while translating, if you don't mind, or should we just thank you.
That's fine, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairperson, James, it's only in case of fraction, and it's actually developer's choice. So, yeah, it's only in case of fraction. Yes.
Thank you. And I understand the language difficulties, so I'll try keep my questions short.
Thank you.
It seems before your relaunch, there seemed to be very little reason why developers should list on the Galaxy Store, as they have the Play Store on the same device. I mean, is that correct? As a fraction only did. There didn't seem to be much incentive to also list, because they could be available on Play and consumers could access them on a Samsung phone anyway. Is that right?
Oh, yes, it's actually based on the choice of users and developers, but Galaxy Store are actually trying to create some our own benefits for users, and that's why we are doing some partnerships.
Yes, that's what I understand. And I'll come to the relaunch because that is very interesting for us, I think. I mean, we know that Google had agreements with Samsung that Play Store appeared on the default screen. And would that have contributed to Play Store being more successful?
Sorry about the difficulty in IT setting. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Sorry, I was cut off during what I was during the explanation. As you mentioned, Samsung has agreement with Google to grant the license of the Play Store, and the agreement has the term, as you mentioned, having Play Store on the home screen, and that gives accessibility to Play Store on Samsung devices.
And I just wanted to know if that has contributed to Play Store's success. That would seem to be what most courts have said.
They can be one of the factors that may contribute to Galaxy Play Store's awareness, user awareness. But Samsung also have discretion to pre-install Galaxy Store, our own app store, which is Galaxy Store, on the home screen together with the Play Store.
And Google showed us that, but it's not been the South African experience, as I understand. So can I ask, maybe Justin, is that the case for South Africa, that Galaxy is now alongside Play, and when did that happen, if it is now the case?
Certainly. So both Play Store and Galaxy Store are available on the home screen. One point I would note is that we do customization based upon the different operators and on certain product categories. So I could state that for the majority, that would be correct.
And from when did that change? Because we're aware that the previous agreements did not allow that.
I would need to check exact dates, but it's been for some time that it's been available alongside both the Play Store on the home screen.
Mr. Chairperson, I would like to offer more explanations here, that there is no such agreement between Google and Samsung that restricts Samsung from pre-installing Galaxy Store with Play Store on the home screen.
All right, thank you. I mean, we obviously have the history of agreements, but I understand that's not the case now from you.
Sorry, Ms. Chairperson. Yeah, we have some issues in hearing, so if you don't mind, can you repeat the question once again? Sorry.
Maybe it's not a question. I hear from Ms. Kim that currently there is no agreement that prevents Samsung installing Galaxy on the home screen.
Yes, yes, that's right.
Can I ask Mr. Hume, just for the customization for mobile operators, whether a Vodacom store can also be on the default screen, or is that restricted?
There's no restriction imposed by Google from Samsung about Samsung offering other app stores on the home screen.
Thank you very much.
Yes, James. Yes, I can confirm that. Okay, thank you.
And has this always been the case, or is this a more recent development?
It has been all the same, which means that it is not a recent change.
Thank you. I suppose what is interesting about Galaxy is that on the Android, you sit alongside Google Play, and as we discussed, the app developers can put them on both apps. There's no redevelopment. So you must find some point of differentiation in order to compete and attract customers to your store as opposed to the Play Store. Is that right?
Yes, Mr. Chairperson. Yes, as in perspective of Galaxy Store, Google Play is a competing platform, so we need to find a way to differentiate service via Google. So we are actually providing some customized content for Samsung devices and also some special promotion. And in case of customized content, also includes some partnership with partners.
And that's what I just wanted to understand. I mean, as I understand, when you launched or relaunched the Galaxy Store, you had a partnership with Epic Games to have a short-term exclusive on Fortnite. And I think you also...
Yes, we have a partnership with Epic Games on Fortnite, yes.
And as I would understand, if I've downloaded Fortnite on the Galaxy Store, any in-app payments I then make would be through the Galaxy Store, not through the Play Store. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And so it seems having launch exclusives can be a useful tool to also bring people back to your store. Is that correct?
We are, as explained, we are trying to provide any kind of customized or special content for Galaxy user having our own ads, and also this Fortnite is as a part of it. Yes.
Can I just ask? We've talked about the different types of paid apps that exist, but the impression we get is that games is a big part of the revenue for an app store. I mean, is that right? It seems they are the most popular to download.
Sorry, Mr. Chairperson, I don't have detailed information as you asked right now. So if you want, I could respond upon your request in written.
Yeah, we don't need the exact amount. I just wanted to know whether games was a big part of the revenue of an app store. Just that's our impression.
Yes, as you mentioned, yes, games are actually an important category for the store, so we are highlighting as a one big part section in the store.
Yes, because I see from your slides and also your video, games feature quite prominently, obviously as a category, and it's likely to us that people may download many games, whereas I might just subscribe to one newspaper. So there's a difference with games. That's all.
Okay, yes.
In the sort of partnerships for exclusivity in the launch, I might assume that you have to offer your partners some benefit too. Some of that benefit may be marketing and promotion that you do that promotes their game in combination with Samsung. Would that be correct?
Yes, there could be various type of partnership. Yes, but promotion can be one part of we can support.
And would it also involve discounting on the commission fees or in-app payment fees?
Yes, we are basically based on the 70/30 revenue share, but it's negotiable, yes.
Because Epic Games to be launched exclusively, then they're going to lose out on other phones other than Samsung, obviously, because they won't be on Play Store. So I just want to find out if that 30 is negotiable for an exclusive.
Mr. Chairperson, yes, there could be a various type of partnership, so I can define details, but various type of support or clues can be possible, and revenue share can be part of it, but it does not exactly directly integrate between exclusive and the revenue share ratio.
Thank you. You've also said that you've got some of your own content, wallpapers and the like. How else do you try and get people back to your store repeatedly? I understand that's quite an important part in the success of a store.
Yes, as explained, exclusive contents like themes or word papers are trying us to bring the user to use Galaxy Store. Yes.
And the essential games pick or pack, is that also to have people coming back frequently?
I'm not so sure whether that exactly attract the users, but we are creating some video for users to recognize the benefits or details of the game with the video clips.
All right, thank you. And since the relaunch, have you seen quite large growth in the Samsung Galaxy Store use in at least South Korea?
Oh yes, but yes, might be affected, but I have no detailed information. So if you want to know, I will gonna provide in written submission upon request.
All right, I just want to know whether it's been a successful relaunch. That's.
Yes, that's right. Actually help us to being a growth of the store.
And Mr. Hume, in South Africa, has that also been the case?
We have seen some steady growth in numbers over the years as that relaunch took place. Correct.
But still, I assume, trailing quite far behind Play Store.
Certainly, I think yes, we're certainly not playing at that level, so to speak.
So one strategy is to differentiate on content, and that seems to be the strategy Samsung has adopted. Can I ask? There's another strategy, maybe to charge lower commission fees, not the 70/30, and to allow or ask the app developers to offer the apps at a lower price to consumers. Is that a strategy that Samsung has considered in the past?
Oh, actually, the price itself a developer's decision, so we are not considering on it. But as you explained, the revenue share is one of the points that we discussed with developers. Yes.
But you'd indicated the standard model is the 70-30 model. Do you just with selected developers differentiate that revenue share, or have you considered changing it for all developers?
Oh, it's upon developer, so we need separate negotiation is needed for that.
And so would that really be the large developers, I assume? Because you won't negotiate with every small developer.
It depends on the user's benefits, so I cannot detail the numbers on it, but yeah, it depends on the user's benefit.
I mean, recently Google has dropped their revenue share, if we're calling it that, but the share that they take to 15% for those earning for the first $1 million earned, and they also recently announced reductions from next year for subscriptions to start at 15% and for certain digital content at 10%. Has Samsung also adjusted their revenue share in line with this?
Basically, Galaxy Store provides 73 ratio, but it's a negotiation point, so we do not changing the ratio itself, but it's negotiable for developers based on the user's benefit if they have.
I mean, I hear you, Ms. Bin. The question I have is, these are adjustments to the standard conditions, and has Samsung made those adjustments or not?
We are not having any detailed decision on that yet.
Are you considering making the changes? Because you're on the same device as the Play Store, and my question would be, if I'm a developer, why would I put my app on your store if you're going to charge me much more than Google? Would I rather not want to just be on Google Play Store?
We are actually studying markets and other competitors, and we are having some internal discussion, but nothing changes are decided yet.
All right, so we'll wait to hear whether Samsung does make a change or not.
All due respect, yeah, if there's any change are decided, we are happy to share with you.
So the one change that has happened is South Korea has passed a law, I mean it's well publicized, that requires app stores operating in South Korea to provide app developers with alternate means for in-app payments. And as I understood, the purpose of that law was to try and reduce the commission fees for app developers. Is that correct?
I'm not so sure the intention of the law itself, but we are aware of the new law and we are preparing it as well.
So we have seen public announcements from Google and Apple as to how they are responding, but I haven't seen any announcement from Samsung. So can you just indicate how you're making changes to ensure compliance with the law?
First of all, Samsung never have been against the new law because we have been allowed that developers use their own IAP or any certain IAP. So there is nothing that Galaxy Store need to do for that.
So you allow a developer to bypass your payment system, is that correct?
Correct. Yes, that's right.
And is that for in-app payments too?
Yes, that's right.
And are the app developers allowed to communicate this to the Samsung phone owners?
Yeah, there's no restriction, yes.
And how many app developers make use of alternative payment systems currently?
I have no data, such a data right now. So if you like to check, but we are unable to check all third-party data by ourselves. So if you want, we can check in later and submit it in written request. But it cannot. It could not be. Sorry, I have language limitation. But yeah, we don't actually have exact data right now.
And I don't need exact. I mean, is it a small amount, a large amount?
It's actually app developers data, so I cannot check all the data right now in our system.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not really looking for exact. I mean, I'm sure Samsung has some idea whether it's a small amount or large amount, and you would have done that, I assume, certainly whilst this law was being drafted.
Samsung never restrict any using third-party IAP, so we've never tracked such a data in detail. But as we assume that we search our store, there are a lot of such amount of users sellers who are using their own IAP system without a Samsung IAP.
Thank you. And if they use their own in-app payment system, IAP, does Samsung still charge a fee for the services they provide as the store?
Oh, we are not. Sorry, Mr. Chairperson. We cannot track Samsung's other third-party IAP, so we cannot. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask our legal team to respond on that upon me?
Sure.
Regarding sorry for the howling. So regarding applications that use a third-party IAP, we have no way to track those applications, and also we do not charge any fees in regards to those apps.
Thank you. Because it seems from the press that Google is intending to still charge other fees, which I think I understand from the regulator's perspective seems to defeat the purpose of the law, which was trying to bring down the fees. But it's good to know that Samsung does not. And I assume these rules apply globally, so they would apply to South Africa too. Is that correct?
Sorry, Mr. Chairperson, we are muted. Yes, and actually we don't have any specific strategy for the South Africa specified.
So it's the same rules here that
Yes.
I understand.
Yeah, we have no differentiation.
Just to go to then the South African store, is there a separate, I mean, there's a separate storefront charged in rands as opposed to other currencies in South Africa. Is this store curated especially for South Africa, or do we have a generic global setting?
We provide a general setting for South Africa.
So if I'm in South Africa and I search or I look for the ranking of the top sellers, would that be not for South Africa specific? It would be for global?
Ranking system is based on the South African users, right? But what I answered before is that we are not curating or making the storefront for user different for South Africa.
All right, so the top picks, top performers would all be based on global Samsung users, not South African users.
Yes, but contents can be different from other country store, as some of the contents might not be available or not available in South Africa. Depends on the developer's decision.
All right, I understand that, and I suppose for a local bank, for instance, their app may not be made available globally because no one's banking with them globally.
Yes, that's right.
So maybe Mr. Hume, to go back to you, can you just give us a little more detail on this app developer lab, how long it's been running, and what does it focus on, and how many people have gone through this lab? I think you mentioned 2 cohorts.
Right, yes, so it's been 2 cohorts. Unfortunately, I suppose last year's or the past year's been a little bit more challenging based upon some of the COVID conditions that we've had, but nonetheless we have completed that. So as I mentioned, that those are 2 that are running, one in the Western Cape, one up here in Johannesburg. I need to just double check, if you give me a minute, the absolute number of people. Find out in a second here. But I think, yes, very much, while I'm looking for that, very much focused upon, obviously, the developing previously disadvantaged talent. And so predominantly this program is under part of our EEIP initiative that we have been working with the DTI in that regard. So looking through here, I've got so far about 140, between 140 and 150 people have successfully passed this course at this point in time.
And what is the contribution? Well, first let me ask how long it's been going for. I think I'd ask that if you can just give us an indication.
Yes. So that's the past 2 years. It's been in progress.
2 years, all right. And what is exactly the contribution of Samsung as it's a partnership?
So we, firstly, there's a financial contribution towards that in the form of scholarships. There's also certain device support, obviously in terms of the hardware that is provided to the individuals. And then we have had a number of direct interventions. So where, if I can use the term, expert members of our organization facilitate certain of the class conditions and courses. So there's a skills transfer. One of the key objectives, if I can put in this, the ultimate outcome would be about the ability to place these individuals into formalized or self-starting employment effectively at the end of the program, to give them the skills and the competencies to do that. So I think that's what we're looking forward to in the future, to be able to report on. That would be our measure of success. And
look, we'll get more details from you in due course. But is there a particular focus of the app development? We know games is quite specialized. Is it generic, or does it have a focus?
It's not specific to gaming, if that's the intention of the question. It is more about the platform coding, as well as integration specifically with a mobile platform being in mind. So that's the direction. But note to your point, gaming is not a specific focus.
Then maybe back to the head office. Does Samsung provide similar initiatives in your home country and in other countries?
HK doesn't have any specific guideline or policy to running any special activities as South African do, but all local countries are trying to operating their own system or services as they need it.
Thank you very much. The next question I have is that the app developers in South Africa have said they battle to get visibility on app stores because there are so many apps that it's difficult. Do you think it would help if we had a curation for South African apps to enable discoverability? And does Samsung do that in other countries?
Currently, Galaxy Store in South Africa learning-based global, so we are not especially curating the South African developer specifications, but by considering your good suggestion, yeah, we will consider if there is any way to develop a South African, we can help South African developers in that way.
Thank you, because we are exploring how app developers in South Africa and probably the continent more broadly can participate more in the online economy, and app stores seem to be one way of doing that. And certainly training people to work for organizations that develop apps is one thing. A lot of apps are free and driven by banks or others that offer their services to consumers, but there is also a world of commercial apps and gaming apps where we seem to play a very small role. So we would appreciate that Samsung gives some thought to this and how we can further that, but we think the visibility and discoverability is a critical element. We can train people, but if they can't develop apps that get the attention of consumers, then it may be in vain. We're almost out of time. I just had a couple more questions. The Samsung phones also have Google Assistants, the voice activated service from Google. Is that right?
Yes, Samsung has Google Assistant. Samsung has Google Assistant on Samsung phones.
And just from Samsung's experience, has consumer use of the assistant to do search been growing? And do you think it'll be an important tool in the future?
In terms of any Google Assistant activity, Samsung has in terms of Google Assistant activity, Samsung does not have a visibility into its user interactions.
So do you not get any information as to how a user on your phone makes use of voice-activated search rather than type search?
Since the activities are done through Google applications, Samsung does not collect such data.
And so does your agreement with Google not allow you to get basic data on this? Are you saying you get no data whatsoever?
In terms of Google Assistant related questions, we definitely need to get back to our internal teams and check the accurate status. But I think that is currently not checked on our side to answer at this moment.
All right, thank you. We are out of time and we have our next participant waiting. I do want to thank Samsung for making available this team to us, both locally and and also at the head office, there are a large number of questions that we do require answers to that we'll send to the head office. I think we've had difficulties in the past getting a response, and I trust going forward we can send them to the head office and get those answered, because it seemed that the South African office did not have the information. So I look forward to that interaction in future. And Ms. Kim, I assume that we channel it directly to you, or do we go through the South African office?
We prefer we get this the RFI via our Samsung South Africa team.
All right, thank you. But if we send it through, I assume you will respond to our RFI. We will try and not make it too burdensome, but there's obviously many confidential things we couldn't cover today, and we would want answers.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Thank you very much for your cooperation. So to the Samsung team in Seoul, enjoy your Friday evening and your weekend. And to the South African team, thank you for coming on this morning, and also enjoy your weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Same to
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Tucker, I presume. Kevin, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So I'd like to welcome you, Mr. Kevin Tucker from Price Check. Thank you for making yourself available for the public hearings. And I believe you do have a presentation, so I'm going to ask you to roll into that. Before you do, just to also introduce my fellow panel member, Ms. Doris Tsepe, and then also the technical team, Ms. Rahma Lerner will be leading most of the questions, and I'm sure you're familiar with her.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chairperson and the panel. First of all, thanks for having us. I've got Graham Wickens with me, who's going to give a bit more detail a bit later. But I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about Price Check and the environment around search and shopping and retail in general. And I think this is a great platform for the South African public to get to understand what happens behind closed doors, I suppose, because most of their life is spent online these days, especially since the pandemic introduced everyone to online shopping and forced them behind their computers at home. And I think I'm not a competition law expert, but I think when it comes to competition and monopolies and anti-competitive behavior, I think there's a lot of uncertainty from the public, in terms of how it works and what the responsibilities are. So I think this is a great platform to kind of talk about those things. So I'm going to jump straight into the presentation to introduce Price Check.
Yeah, and Mr. Tucker, if we can, I know it's a long presentation, we try and contain it to 30 to 40 minutes if possible.
Of course. I will speak very quickly, and then I will leave room for lots of questions at the end.
Look, a lot of our questions seem to be answered by your presentation, so you don't have to go too quickly. But make sure we understand as well, and the public does too.
Excellent. I've had a lot of time to think about it, so that's probably why. But I will kick off. So a summary of the topics. I'm not going to waste time on that slide. What I wanted to do was take you through a little bit of the history of price check and just give you some context. So price check is one of the older internet companies, if you like, and specifically one of the older e-commerce companies. There's probably 2 or 3 online stores that were around longer than us, but in terms of e-commerce platforms, very few existed in 2006 when we launched. And it's surprising and it's quite pleasing that we're still around, because it's a very tough competitive environment that we find ourselves in. And what I wanted to do was kind of showcase the evolution of price check over time, and show you how it's evolved and what we've become. So price check started as a price comparison service inspired by European price comparison services, which is kind of ironic because we're going to be talking about that. So in 2006, price check launched. There were no other price comparison services in South Africa. We were very content heavy. So price check as a service had more content around products and prices than any other platform, and we still believe that we do. So in 2006, 2007, the evolution was around products and data and categories. In 2011 and 2013, we started augmenting product data and pricing data with informational kind of literature for consumers to help them educate themselves and shop smartly, if you like. So we started offering buying guides and product comparisons, and alongside, obviously, the traditional price and shop comparisons. In 2015 and 2018, we kind of iterated the platform and made it a little bit lighter, a little bit more user-friendly, and more efficient. In 2018, we moved back into a heavily content-oriented platform where we augmented all of the product data with articles, product reviews, video. We did video reviews, we did written content reviews around products. And recently, in November, which is this month, we relaunched again. And most of these iterations are kind of in response to the dynamics in consumerism and some of the dynamics around search, how we are forced to iterate based on the requirements of Google along the way. So the latest iteration, the November version of Price Check, is extremely performant. It's based around Google's new core Web Vitals requirements for websites, which basically give guidelines around how performant websites should be, how fast they should load, how quickly users should see images on the screen, how soon they should become interactive. All of these things are critical components of the new core Web Vitals guidelines that Google has implemented. So, yeah, that's kind of a history of Price Check. And then just to sum it up, we have a large enough range of products and shops that consumers can find basically anything they want on Price Check. And I think one of the core benefits of a price comparison service, which is very critical to note, is that different to a pure play online retail platform who can only merchandise the products that they have, we can basically merchandise, for lack of a better word, any product available online. So if you look at price comparison services in terms of their value offering for consumers, the pure breadth of the service is already a key differentiator between other e-commerce platforms. And that already sets us, I suppose, apart from, often talking about like, where does traditional retail traffic go? Does it go direct to Takealot? Does it go to Google? Those are arguments in their own right, but most of the traffic with a broad reach, with products that are hard to find, ends up on Price Check at some point in time, but not necessarily enough. So a little timeline just to kind of showcase how Price Check has evolved over the ages. So again, it was founded in 2006. We introduced our PPC monetization model in 2007. at 80 cents a click. So that's our pay-per-click model. We were acquired by MIH, which is a division of Naspers in 2010. That really kind of crystallized our offering and professionalized the way we did stuff. We reacquired the business in 2015. So we took it private. Well, it was private essentially, but we took it more private in 2015 when Naspers basically changed strategy, was moving out of price comparison services into a more focused effort on classifieds. We launched our own car and property classifieds in 2017 to broaden our reach of consumers, to reach more eyeballs. Again, under pressure from competitive forces, we realized that we had to broaden our reach. Those were not very successful for myriad reasons. In 2018, we refactored the platform, as I mentioned, with a big focus on value-added content, reviews, blogs, etc. And in 2021, we iterated again and basically went back to our roots, trimmed down the platform and focused on performance. So I just wanted to go into a little bit of detail about the price comparison model itself. So it's one of the earliest examples of a two-sided marketplace where you acquire a heavily active side of shops and a heavily active side of consumers. And if either one of those sides is imbalanced, the platform doesn't really work. And you know, as far as marketplaces go, and in terms of our marketplace, it's non-transactional, but it's a lead generation marketplace. In terms of the way marketplaces go, PriceCheck was very successful early on in number one, building up the seller side, essentially the shops, and building up the consumer side kind of at the same time. When you enter the marketplace with the marketplace these days, you have to heavily subsidize one of those sides first to kick off, and then heavily subsidize one of the other sides. We were quite lucky in the early days in that they both kind of grew in parallel. So talking about the business model a little bit, we don't make a lot of money per visit. In fact, we make very little money per visit. And so it's extremely important for us to get as much traffic as possible, as cheaply as possible. And so we dabble in arbitrage. We try and buy low and sell high. We try and find free traffic, essentially organic listings. We try and use retargeting services every now and then, where we retarget visitors that have already been to PriceCheck and try and bring them back to the platform at a lower cost than the original acquisition. And then we have kind of our internal marketing services, so emails, push notifications, and various other forms of traffic generation that are relatively low cost. And that basically enables the model to operate. So cheap traffic sold for a slightly higher price than it was acquired. Now, just in terms of our revenue model, I kind of imposed those on the original timeline. So between 2006 and 2007, our cost per click was 80 cents. It increased to R1 for the next 3 years. And then for 5 years, it hovered around R1.20. We increased it to R1.50. And then in 2017, we increased it to R2.20. And it's been around R2.20 for the last 4 years. So we don't have a lot of we don't increase price a lot. This, by the way, is our base pricing. Merchants can choose to pay higher fees should they like for higher priority in some of the display rankings. But the majority of the time, most of our retailers choose to operate on the base price. And we offer a very simple model where they pay the same price across all of their offers for the entire shop. So just some of the keys to our early success. We focused on content quality, as I mentioned. There was no other platform that was focused on product content, matching products together, making sure products had descriptions, images, barcodes, model numbers, and features. So for a TV, it would be screen size, it would be resolution. Those are the kinds of features that we focused on over time. We had a broad range of shops. We were heavily focused on SEO. So we made sure that every page and every product could be found very easily in search results. We had feed flexibility, which is something that is not always mentioned, and it's really a passion of mine, is data feeds. We were very flexible in terms of the formatting of data feeds that were required. And if merchants, for example, were missing a particular field, let's say a barcode, or they didn't have a model number, or they hadn't correctly categorized their products, we would still accept them. And we would work really hard internally to make sure that those products were listed effectively on the price check platform. Now, other marketing channels are not as flexible and are not as, are definitely more strict in terms of their feed requirements. We also, very importantly, we had a local team. Well, we still have a local team, obviously, which includes account managers. And we find that with online retail in South Africa, it's very important to have a human presence on the ground where merchants can contact you with various problems, with either financial issues, monetization issues, categorization issues, or any other content issues. And that has really, I think, stood us in good stead over time. So just a little bit about marketing and search. So I'm now moving away a little bit from the history of price check and just talking about this environment in general. So there are two ways to find retail products. And I think this is a very important classification because it has a lot of relevance on this market of ours that we operate in. The first way is intent. Intent is basically at the heart of all e-commerce transactions. And intent is the consumer knowing what they want and then going out and looking for the best option for that thing that they want. So I want a Samsung Galaxy S21, where should I buy it? Or I know I want a Samsung Galaxy phone, which one is best for me? And they have intent. They know they want to buy something, and now they need guidance on where to buy it. And then the other is discovery. And discovery is kind of serendipitous. It's impulse. It's not driven by the consumer's desire to buy something in particular. Now, price comparison services are heavily geared towards serving intent-based traffic. And so is Google, right? Google doesn't pride itself on discovery. Discovery is the domain of social media. It's the domain of influencers. It's the domain of above-the-line marketing. Those are discovery-based channels. And I think it's very important that we kind of differentiate the two because we operate almost entirely in the intent-based channel. So to kind of garner a lot of that traffic, you have to work on SEO, search engine optimization, if you want that traffic at a low cost. And as I mentioned, price check had focused very heavily on SEO from the beginning. And there are many factors that influence SEO. I'm not going to go into them in detail for, just for interest of time. But the last point I want to make is these days in retail, is SEO worth it? Is the function of search engine optimization and the effort worth it? And the short answer is probably not. And I'll get to why. So a little bit about the competitive landscape. So in the realms of intent-based traffic, as I mentioned, there's only one real source, and that's Google. I believe that South Africa is unique. I know you've heard from players in other markets. I know you had a presentation from Google, which was very generic in terms of its internationalization, and they had very little detail on South Africa's landscape. But I think South Africa is very unique. There are no competitors to Google. There is no Bing. I mean, Bing exists, but the traffic that they send is definitely in the minority. And there is no Amazon. So really the intent-based traffic, when people are trying to find a particular product, there is generally no competition to Google. And then obviously one of the key factors, which I think Chairperson, you kind of pressed on in one of the presentations, was South Africa has an extremely high concentration of mobile users. And Android, so probably very similar to India and very similar to other markets, especially the US, Android is the dominant operating system, which means that inherently people are intertwined in the Google infrastructure. So all of the search, all of the discovery, you even mentioned on the previous Samsung presentation, even voice search is driven by Google. And that means that the ability to even discover other competing services is basically nullified. So it's this compound problem of having such high mobile penetration, a dependence on Android, and as a result, a dependence on Google. So to sum it all up, one of the challenges for PriceCheck is that we feel we're under attack. And this is an attack from all sides. It's not one point of contact where we have a challenge. It's everywhere we go, every opportunity we have. So I'm going to talk about those in a little bit of detail because I think they form the crux of the challenges that we have in this market with Google's dominance in search. So the first one is exclusion from shopping ads and capture of retail. So I know you've discussed this, but just to kind of clarify this, we are not allowed to participate in shopping ads in South Africa. As a price comparison service, we are completely excluded from offering our listings in shopping ads and also the shopping property. So there is no way currently that PriceCheck is allowed to operate in these arenas. In Europe, obviously the situation is slightly different, but we'll discuss why we don't feel that works. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the reduction in organic visibility, which I know you have studied a lot about, and I'm very appreciative that there's a lot of talk about this because we used to rely almost solely on organic traffic. And in fact, 80% of our inbound traffic is still organic. However, our ability to increase that and increase that over time is basically nullified. The growth in organic traffic is only proportional to the number of people coming online. It's not proportional to the exponential increase in people using the internet more, searching for more things. Basically, organic visibility has declined significantly. The reduction in search ads, because of the shopping unit that appears at the top of the page, the reduction in search ads has meant that even if we want to buy traffic, our ability to buy traffic has been severely compromised by the lack of exposure of display ads. Number 4, algorithmic changes and differential policy. So if we were to focus on organic traffic, Google regularly updates its algorithms that over time detrimentally impact non-brand properties. So that has a massive impact on our business. And in fact, beautifully coincidentally, Google has released a core update this month, which has SEO practitioners up in arms because just before the festive season and the retail season, they've decided to update their core algorithms, which normally result in extreme volatility in the search results and most of the time negatively impact lower trusted properties. And then the fifth one, which is not really something I want to go into too much detail with, but I think it's something that we should all be cognizant of, is that Google does not have the same obligations locally in terms of tax and local obligations, which generally just means that they make more money out of everything they do. So in terms of attack vector 1, shopping ads, exclusion, and the capture of retail, we've been denied access, as I mentioned. Google stated that 80% of their traffic, 80% of their searches do not return ads. I think this is completely disingenuous because that is a harmonized kind of percentage across all of the searches being done. If you look at retail searches or shoppy searches, as they call them, that percentage would be far lower, i.e. the number of ads being shown would happen far often, or the number of times ads being shown would happen far often. And my guess, my gut feeling is that it's actually the other way around. And 80% or more of the time that there's a retail search being done, there are ads being shown. And most of those are the shopping ad unit. Retail searches are dominated by the prominent position of the ad unit. And in fact, out of all of the types of searches that can be performed on Google, travel, hotels, restaurants, local, shopping is the most unique in terms of the fact that the shopping ad unit gets the most prominent position out of any other ad unit across Google, which means that they're putting a lot of effort into it and they see it as a very important opportunity for them. And it's also, as has been mentioned in other presentations, it's also very feature rich. There aren't other types of search that have all of the feature or the metadata points that shopping has. That includes images, prices, titles, product ratings, discounts, shipping costs, all of the extended metadata that's not included in other types of search results appear right at the top of the search results, which obviously draws your attention to it. Outside of Google and price check, there are very few, if any, intent-based traffic generation platforms for retailers. So retailers really are at the mercy of us, for lack of a better word. And that sounds a bit facetious, but it's very difficult if you launch a new online retailer to drive traffic to your store. You can go above the line, you can do TV, print, and radio. That's expensive. But if you want performance-based marketing, it's really Google or price check that are going to be able to send you that traffic. And if one of them is dominating those, your choices are very slim. The second attack vector is reduction in organic visibility. So Google has deliberately captured the search engine results pages for retail and almost completely commercialized them. We'll show you a few examples. Due to price check's exclusion from these shopping ads and Google shopping property, it's reliant on organic search and paid search for traffic from Google. And as I mentioned, paid search is declining too. So the reduction in visibility also of organic search results means that even if we were ranked first in an organic search result on Shopee searches, which are the ones that show the Google shopping ad unit, we would be almost invisible. On desktop, you barely get one organic result. When there's a Shopee ad unit, on mobile, you get 0. And due to Google's policy of favoring brand websites in recent years, so this has been almost a deliberate move on Google's part when it comes to refactoring its algorithms, it favors brands and it favors dominant retailers. So most of the time when you search for a retail type search, the brands and the dominant retailers will come up near the top of the organic search results. For no other reason than those are, the ones that Google has chosen. And it's often the case now that we are not in the top 5 results for brand-led searches. And that is very challenging because the majority of the searches that convert in South Africa are brand-led. Because this is an intent-based platform, the searches are brand-led. So I'm looking for a Samsung, I'm looking for a Sony, I'm looking for Nike, I'm looking for Adidas. Those are brand-led searches, and we don't appear very often in those types of searches. So I've got a little teardown of the search results page, which again, I know you've seen a couple of times, but I don't think there was any detail and any real world examples in terms of how these pages look. So this is a page showcasing a search for Samsung Galaxy S21. And what I've done is I've outlined the real estate available to paid searches and the real estate available to organic searches. And in terms of organic, literally pixel for pixel, the amount of real estate dedicated to organic on this particular search is 10.9%, which is a very insignificant amount. As we go through, we look at another one. We focused a lot on running shoes. So he has a search for ASICS trail shoes. Almost 100% of the page is paid and very little organic. And the first organic result is actually the brand's page. So here it's very difficult for a non-brand site to compete. If we search for air conditioner, which is very topical at the moment and one of the largest search categories on price check, there is 0 organic search real estate. Local, Google might claim local is organic, but really it's not a web-based organic and it's not one of the blue links. And so 0% of this page showcases organic search results. When we go to mobile, that is even more impactful. Well, the lack of organic is even more impactful. So the same search for Samsung Galaxy S21 on an iPhone X would yield the following result where, again, almost all of the page is paid. On a Samsung Galaxy S5, which is a slightly smaller screen, 100% of the page only contains 2 products, which are both paid search results. If we go back to the ASICS Trail on mobile, again, 0 organic search results on either screen. And actually, not even the brand website appears on either of these searches. So those serve to highlight, some of the examples that we've been talking about of how Google really dominates retail searches. If we go to attack vector 3, which is the reduction in search ads, we would say to ourselves, okay, great. We can't compete in shopping. We're not really showing on many of the organic search results. Let's buy search ads, and we'll buy them across all of the search terms that are relevant for us, across the millions of products that we run. Now, the problem is when they introduced the shopping ad unit, they removed 2 of the search ads. And often on a Shopee page, there are 0 search ads. At most, there are 2. If the ad unit moves to the right, there are 4. But now those fall prey to large advertisers with big budgets who stay online for longer. And it's very difficult for us trying to do arbitrage to compete in those search ad units. So even if we wanted to buy our way out of this problem, it's almost impossible. Here we have an example from the Washington Post showcasing the evolution of Google search page over time, 2000, 2013, and 2020. In the beginning, search ads were a critical component of Google search, and SEOs, webmasters, publishers, we accepted that search ads were a great opportunity to drive traffic, and they were fundamentally part of the search results page. Over time, that has changed, and Google has basically shifted organic search results further and further down the page, and also changed the way search ads are displayed. And now with the shopping ad unit, in most of the cases, the search ads just don't have the prominence that they used to, and their effectiveness is basically reduced significantly. Here we have an example of search ads for the Samsung Galaxy S21 search, and here you can see Samsung and Vodacom, who probably have the biggest budgets for this particular search term, are the dominant advertisers in this slot. So it would be very difficult for us to compete at all for this particular search term. Now, what I did is I basically used an example of the data that Google gives us. So in Google Search Console, you get an idea of how your site performs organically across Google searches. And it's actually a wonderful tool. It has very rich data. I've taken a search HTH floater price. So as we come into summer, people are trying to get their pools ready, and that's one of the most popular search terms on Price Check. We realized 156 impressions for that search term. So our site showed organically 156 times, and we were in position 1. So organically, we were the first search result for HTH floater price. Now, I went into Google Ads, and I did an estimate on their keyword discovery tool, which basically tells you how many times you would be able to advertise against that search term. Now, for the same search term, the average monthly searches for the month in comparison in October 2021 was 320. So what we can see is there are more than double the number of impressions available to advertisers than there are to organic search results. This was a very clear indication that organic search results are suffering from the over-commercialization of search pages. Vector 4 is the algorithmic changes and differential policies. Now, Google is constantly updating this black box that they have that determines how you rank in organic search. No one really knows how it works. They put out guidance every now and then about what you should be doing to improve the performance of your website, but they don't tell you exactly what that magic source is. And, fair enough. That's been the same way since 2004. And everyone has accepted that that's what it is. It's the changes that make it very difficult. Those changes can have can be heavily impactful on certain websites. And in fact, in 2010, our competitor, Jump Shopping, which was a comparison service around in 2010, was heavily penalized by Google for some infraction or other in the organic search results, and they were almost completely obliterated from the search results. And that already, 11 years ago, eliminated one member of the competition just purely through an algorithmic change. So it's a very challenging environment when you don't really know what's going to happen in the next core update, and we watch it with extreme anxiety most of the time. And then one of the key things which eDreams mentioned yesterday, and I just want to kind of reiterate, is that when it comes to Google's own policies with regards to organic search and how it ranks, if Google was an independent platform, a third-party platform that wanted to rank in organic search results, it probably wouldn't. It's a platform that is purely geared towards attracting as much traffic as possible and reselling that traffic to someone else. It doesn't add value. They don't write content. There's nothing original. all of their results are based on aggregations of someone else's results or someone else's pages. So if they were to be objectively ranked against other organic search results, they would not feature. And I think that's a critical thing to take into account, is that there's rules for one which are not the same as another. Attack vector 5 is basically around tax and local obligations. So, we find it highly unlikely that Google pays any kind of tax to SARS on the profits that they generate from the shopping ad unit. And that in itself essentially puts them ahead in terms of profitability, margin, and resources that they can invest in growing and innovating these services, because they don't have that tax burden locally that any other business would have. In addition, they don't have resources on the ground to deal with any kind of shopping business. So competing with them is challenging because they have more money to spend at more margin. Well, they take more of a take of 100% of their money, and they have services which are subsidized by their global operations to handle the support queries required out of South Africa. So I've essentially discussed the 5 attack vectors where Google kind of limits our ability to grow the business and our ability to expand and our ability to reach consumers. How does that impact our ability to become a partner for SMEs? I think this is, again, a critical component of this inquiry, and I think it's very important for us to address this. So we have plans. So our future roadmap includes being able to promote Black-owned businesses, being able to promote women-owned businesses, promoting small businesses, and promoting local businesses. So with the data we have at hand, we have plans to build functionality to be able to discover these types of businesses, to support them, to showcase them. And that is something that I don't think Google would ever do. And I don't think they can, because it's differentiated between different markets. And we find that that is a very difficult thing for them to achieve. We also have a local on-the-ground team, as I mentioned, that helps local businesses. We help them get started. We give them advice. We make sure that they are successful in their journey with PriceCheck. We have a contact phone number. As trivial as that might seem, Google does not have a contact phone number. You can't phone them. You can't just pick up the phone and say, hey, Google, can't find my product. And I think that is a trivial yet very important aspect of local support. When we talk about growing SMEs and showcasing their products, we allow the listing of products that are legal in South Africa, but Google may not allow. Beautiful examples of these are COVID-related and PPE products. So during the pandemic, people were looking for masks, sanitizer, overalls, gloves, whatever it may be, thermometers. Google had a ban on any of those kinds of products because of some internal corporate policy or some kind of US policy that they decided to roll out around the world to protect people from fly-by-night operators. Possibly good intent, but definitely damaging to genuine legal businesses operating in that sector. And we saw that. We had many businesses who already had those supplies long before the pandemic and wanted to sell them and could not reach customers. Recently, in September 2021, Google basically relaxed those regulations, but that took almost a year and a half to get there. CBD products. Now, this is a growing category and very popular in South Africa for various reasons. You are not allowed to advertise CBD products on Google. PriceCheck, as long as it's legal, will allow you to list products that are legally obtainable. Now, adult products, another growing category, very popular online, very highly restricted on platforms like Google. PriceCheck takes a much more relaxed view of these, and we see that as an important category in online retail. Because of its discrete nature, it's much better than trying to offer that kind of category in a brick and mortar store. And then the last point I want to make on this is that we have a favorable ROAS, and we have seen anecdotal evidence that the return on ad spend, so the amount of revenue you generate per rand spent with PriceCheck, is greater than that of Google Shopping. So when retailers spend with us, they make more money per rand that they spend than they do on Google Shopping. Now, this is not always the case, but this is often the case. And I think if we had greater reach and we had much greater visibility, we could share that benefit of using price check with more retailers. And that wraps up my section of the presentation. I'm not sure if you would like to ask any questions now, but I'd like to hand over to Graham for the rest.
Mr. Tucker and Graham, we have indicated in the rules for participation that we're not taking submissions from legal representatives in these public hearings. So we can, I think we'd indicated that legal submissions we'd take by February, and we can have a separate in-camera session for that. But I also think, Mr. Tucker, we've used up a lot of time already, and we've only got about 30 minutes left for questions in any event. So it may be a useful time for us to turn to questions, and in that discussion we may ask about the Google Shopping remedy, and in that respect we'd like your perspectives as the business person more than anything. So I apologize to Mr. Wickens if he had prepared for a presentation, but I'm going to now hand over to Ms. Rachma-Lerner to just take to field some questions to you, and the panel may have some additional ones once she is finished.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Tucker. I'm going to perhaps just ask questions based on what you've already presented, and then we'll also go into the remedies after that. But I just wanted to first start by putting to you what Google has said to us, which is that they're arguing that CSSs in South Africa have not taken off due to our e-commerce developing later, and instead that consumers go directly to e-commerce sites. Just wanted to understand what your view is on this.
Thank you. That's a very good question. So, I mean, the fact that we attract probably close to 2 million visitors a month is indication enough. I mean, if I just presented you the fact that 2 million people a month come to PriceCheck to use PriceCheck to find products, that's probably answer enough. However, I don't believe that is true. We've been around since 2006. We've always had a disproportionately large audience compared to other retailers in the country. So only over the last year or two, as Takealot has become, Takealot probably over the last 3 or 4 years, has become a more and more dominant in terms of actual retail offerings. We have been by far and away the second or third biggest e-commerce platform in the country. So, compared to Bid or Buy, compared to Macro, compared to Loot, of the old original e-commerce platforms, we have been by far and away bigger than them up until probably the last 2 or 3 years. So, I mean, hopefully that answers your questions, that people do come to price comparison services and they do use price comparison services. In fact, in November 29, I forget if it was 2018 or 2019, but on Black Friday of that year, we sent Takealot alone 9,000 visitors that day. In one single 24-hour period, we sent them 9,000 clicks, which is essentially 9,000 visitors from PriceCheck to Takealot. Again, these are like essentially the user numbers, the fact that we are almost bigger than most other e-commerce platforms, and the fact that we sent Takealot, who is the dominant retailer, 9,000 visitors on Black Friday, means that people do see a use for PriceCheck, and we are a significant traffic generator for retailers. So I would not agree with that statement.
And then could you tell us a little bit more about other CSSs in South Africa? I mean, who are they, and how have they managed to do in South Africa, if you do know?
Sure. So the landscape is very thin. Originally I mentioned Jump Shopping, who was probably our competitor and nemesis at the time. So for 4 years, we kind of tracked each other. There was no Google Shopping. There was none of that. We were really the destinations for comparison shopping. And they were essentially disqualified from Google search results for, no particular reason in 2010 or around there. And from that point onwards, there really wasn't much direct competition. Every now and then a price comparison service would pop up There's one called Shopmania, which is an international one, which has been around for a long time. There was PriceNah, which is one out of the UAE, which operates, I think, in Nigeria, South Africa, and Dubai. They've been around for a while. There was one called One Shop. But a lot of these don't really generate any kind of significant traffic. And because they don't have a local presence, they really struggle to essentially build that one side of the network, which is the shops, the products, the prices. And, you know, outside of Google, we don't really have a hell of a lot of competition currently. And again, I think that also showcases the fact that we have been around for so long. We've really focused on delivering a service that offers value to, you know, to consumers and shops. And that probably is an indication that it's a lot of effort to build a price comparison service, and you can't do it overnight. And so these competitors come and go.
So, you know, just based on what you said now about who's entered, it sounds like they've been around for a while. Have there been any CSSs since Google Shopping entered, so since mid-2017 when it, you know, became more entrenched in 2018?
That is a very good question. I can't categorically answer that question because, you know, some might have arrived. But I would say there are no significant CSSs that I am aware of that have entered the market since that time.
And would you have a reason? Would you be able to say that?
Well, I mean, you know, whenever this is the intermediation inquiry, and I think disintermediation is a very scary thing for a lot of businesses. And if you want to enter a market from another market and you see one big behemoth operating in your vertical, you would probably be very hesitant. But additionally, it's extremely onerous, time-consuming, and very difficult to run a comparison shopping service and to run it effectively. And that's, again, for myriad reasons. If I go into a couple, the one is infrastructurally, it's very hard. You're processing a lot of data and you're processing it regularly. So, you know, we would on any particular day, we would process hundreds of data feeds, which would include millions of price points. And we're doing that daily. We're not doing that, you know, weekly or monthly. We have to serve millions of customers at a very low unit economic, well, essentially economic unit value, right? So for every customer, we generate very little money. And that means that we have to have extremely efficient infrastructure, and we have to be able to serve many, many customers with that infrastructure. So infrastructurally, it's very complex. It also requires tools, software that have been built over the last 15 years to be able to manage this. You know, things to be able to match products together. You need heuristics, you need fuzzy search, you need AI in the future, you need machine learning, you need to be able to augment products with with images, with barcodes, and all sorts of things. It's a very complex operation.
Okay, so for international firms wanting to enter, it may be that they don't have local capacity to build that, and for local firms, it would also be difficult. Those kinds of skills are maybe difficult to build up, and it's administratively, as you say, complex. So it's both sides. It would be difficult.
Yeah, if you have the software from another market, it's not terribly difficult to enter a new market, right? Because price comparison services generally will work the same. But you'll have this platform with no networks on either side of the platform. And that's the hard part, and that's where you kind of need local feet on the ground.
Okay, thanks. The next question I wanted to ask was just about PriceCheck having lost support maybe over the last few years, and you know whether there might have been other reasons. I mean, you did put through a price increase in 2017-18 around maybe around the time that Google Shopping maybe became more entrenched, or the unit. And there have also been, as you explained, changes to the website over time, which might have also had an impact there. I just wanted to check whether, you know, the extent to which your loss in support could also be attributed to those changes.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, very good questions. I think Our loss in support has been marginal. Our lack of growth has been significant. And I think those are two key factors to take into account, because loss of support would indicate that we don't have a platform that people want to use anymore, or we don't have a platform that people can find. And I don't think that's necessarily the case in terms of them not wanting to use it, because like I said, we still have almost 2 million people a month using this service. What has happened is that we just don't have the visibility that we used to have. And that has a compounding effect. So if I can just give you an idea of the life cycle of a customer on PriceCheck, they would arrive through some kind of organic means or some paid search result. When they land on PriceCheck, we have numerous kind of techniques, I suppose, for capturing that user to turn them into a long-term customer. So we run competitions, we have forms that they can fill in, we have newsletters that they can subscribe to, we have tracking from Facebook and Google and Criteo for remarketing purposes so that we can advertise to them later down the line. But if those people never come to PriceCheck, then that system is never triggered. And we can never have this compound growth of customers that visit, become long-term customers, new customers visit, become long-term customers. Eventually, once you have no visibility from Google, those new customers dry up. And all you're trying to do is kind of reinvigorate these existing customers. And I think that is probably why the numbers look the way they do, because this, new user acquisition is very low relative to what it used to be. I think those are major factors. And then one point I just want to make, because I know this is a constant argument from Google, is that, well, you redesigned your site and it wasn't as great and you lost SEO ranking. Why should that happen? We're still a price comparison service offering the same shops, the same products, the same prices. Who cares whether we meet Google's guidelines for SEO ranking? If we still offer the same products, the same shops, and the same prices, we should still have the same application for consumers. So if the argument is that we made website changes and so our ranking declined, that is the best indicator of Google's dominance and the pressure that they place on services that offer value to consumers.
Okay, so actually, what I was referring to in terms of support was also just support from retailers, which is, I understand, that you had lost a little bit of support from retailers, and whether that was related to any changes in your, your website or prices, and whether that would have, or would that also explain that, or are there other reasons?
Yeah, sorry, I went off on a tangent there, slightly unrelated to your original question, but I probably answered one of your next questions. But related to the loss of the key retailers, we have had this cycle of, onboarding retailers. It takes a lot of effort. There's a long sales cycle, and eventually you come to an agreement, you have a negotiation, they say, right, we're going to use PriceCheck as our lead generation tool. And we had that. And we were we were very effective. As I mentioned, 9,000 clicks we sent to Take a Lot on one Black Friday, which, in those days, 3 or 4 years ago, was quite significant. What happened was, as a proportion of the total traffic that was coming into these retailers, Google versus PriceCheck, we were much less significant. And when you need to produce a data feed, you need to manage your listings, you need to communicate with account managers, it probably takes as much effort to manage PriceCheck as it does Google. And so the time cost was the same for PriceCheck and the same for Google, but Google yielded far more traffic than PriceCheck did, even though the return on ad spend was similar. And I think the decision from these retailers was like, well, it's just as much effort to manage Google, so why don't we just focus on Google? And that probably, hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thanks. I'm going to move on and just ask about the benefits of CSSs. You have spoken a little bit about this, but I maybe would like to speak about it more broadly, because you have spoken about benefits in relation to PriceCheck. But yeah, in your view, what are the main benefits of comparison shopping sites relative in South Africa, and why should we have more of them?
So again, a very good question. I think, looking at some of the other presentations that we've seen, especially around travel and flights, OTAs and price comparison services have a lot in common. And the difference is that we are not just aggregators, we're aggregators with value-added components. And again, because Google is just aggregating other aggregators or aggregating other platforms, and they don't really have humans writing content and adding value, the big difference is that we have all of these complementary services. And essentially, the more money we make and the more resources we have, the more we can build these complementary services. So I mentioned in our previous iteration of Price Check, we started building essentially curated lists of products. So we would go out and find you the best, I can't even remember what the categories were that we did, but possibly the best air conditioners and the best gaming consoles and the best home assistants. So we would build these curated lists that people could discover and browse and find ways to shop smartly and try and turn intent traffic into discovery traffic. We have blogs. We've written thousands of articles over the last 15 years about new product releases, about their benefits. We've done product reviews and all sorts of other things that essentially are complementary to just having products and prices. One of the other key things that we've always focused on from the beginning, and we're still not very good at it, it's very, very difficult, is matching products together to have a true price comparison, right? And the shopping ad unit, for example, on Google is not a price comparison, and Google will tell you it's not a price comparison. It's just a listing of things for sale. And what that does to people psychologically is it makes them think that they are getting the best product at the best price because it's front and center. And that is hardly ever the case. In fact, if I had the worst priced product, I would bid the highest to make sure that I could convince people to come and buy my product even though I had the least competitive price. So it's counterintuitive, the way that ad unit works. Where on comparison shopping services, the goal is to show all of the prices all of the time.
Okay, that actually brings me quite nicely into the next question, which is, I mean, based on your presentation, you did say that you can pay more for a better position, and so how is that different to a Google? Because you can, so someone who comes onto that site would look at the products and would see those who are paying more at the top. Would that not also do the same thing? Would it still, is there still a fair comparison, really?
So that's an excellent question. And I suppose the first thing to mention is that Price Check and other comparison shopping services are comparison shopping services. They focus on retail and they compare products, prices, and shops. Google is a search engine that happens to have a retail component right at the top of the page. So the majority of the page is actually not related to retail. It's related to all sorts of things. It's local businesses, maps, all sorts of stuff, and there is a retail component to it. So whether we charge people for promotion or not, at any point in time, you're going to see all sorts of products on the page. And the way Price Check's promotion works is that the price you pay doesn't affect the search results, and it doesn't affect the relevance in the search results. So if you perform a search on Price Check, you will find all relevant products. Once you click through and you view offers for that product, the offers are ranked by the price that a merchant is willing to pay. But on that page, you will still see all the offers. So the big difference is that it's not this limited view of products and prices. There's always a global view, but the most visible ones will probably be ranked by the price that they're willing to pay. On our new design, we do showcase the higher paying ones on the search page, but you can click through always and see all the prices. On Google the shopping ad unit, there's no way to really click through from those promoted ones and then see all the other prices for that particular product.
Okay. I'm now going to go just to the remedy, because I think that's probably quite important for us to discuss now. Firstly, I just want, so Google has said that price comparison sites can be listed in the shopping unit. I just wanted to get your response to that. And obviously there are conditions attached to that. Maybe you can just explain.
Sure. I'm trying to find, we do have a list of the countries that are allowed to list in that shopping ad unit. South Africa is not one of them, by the way. So CSSs in South Africa are not allowed to list in that, either the shopping ad unit or the shopping property.
Okay, but isn't there a you can, if you have a buy box, a buy now box, you can be in that shopping unit?
Yes, that is correct. If you do have a buy button, but that would mean you have to take the transaction on your website.
And how difficult is that to do?
It's very difficult.
Okay.
It is very difficult because you are now turning into from a data platform into a transactional retail platform. And we've dabbled with that. We tried to build a marketplace very similar to Takealot's marketplace, for example, where we onboard third-party sellers onto PriceCheck. We built a shopping cart, we built a transactional component, we built order management, so that we could have that buy button, so that we could list in Google Shopping and drive more traffic to our retailers. However, that wasn't very successful for various reasons. We didn't have great sellers, we didn't get enough traffic to make it worth their while. Again, the cost of running this marketplace is not insignificant. And sellers on Takealot will tell you it probably takes all of their time to manage their Takealot listings. It's a very onerous kind of process. And so to build a successful marketplace, you need all of the support, you need sellers to buy into it, and it's very difficult. And it was slightly outside of our wheelhouse. We're a price comparison service. We're good at sending traffic to you. We're not good at, turning the traffic into a sale on our website. And so as it stands with just a view offer button, as opposed to a buy now button, we are not allowed to list in the shopping ads or the shopping property.
Okay. Now, would you be able to? I mean, what happened in the EU with the remedy or the compliance mechanism chosen by Google there. Would you be able to just give us a sense of what you think would make sense here in South Africa, and how that would differ or be similar to what's happened in Europe so far?
Sure. I'm just going to share my screen, if you don't mind, because I have a visual representation of what we think could be effective remedies. And again, we've thought quite deeply about this, because obviously the European, the case and the investigation has been going on for a number of years. And so there's been a lot of time to kind of digest what this is all about. And so, if you can see over here, we've strategized, we've brainstormed, we've thought of a remedy or a few remedies that we think would be successful. Number one, successful to improve competition in South Africa across all players. And number two, be successful in terms of Google buying into the concept. We believe that obviously having Google's buy-in is very important, because we've seen in Europe that without Google's buy-in, they will do everything they can to work towards the letter of the law rather than the spirit of the law. And I think that has come back to bite many comparison services in Europe. And so the first thing I wanted to mention was that if we look at Europe, as you mentioned, as a basis for what may happen, or what the possibilities are, the first thing was that Google was pretty much left to its own devices to come up with a remedy that they thought, answered the requirements of the European Commission. And what that did is it had this perverse effect and basically enabled a whole new ecosystem of fake comparison shopping services that Google subsidized. So Google basically took it upon itself to open up the shopping ad unit and the shopping property to other comparison shopping services. And the way they did that, basically to get as many on board as quickly as possible, was that they paid them and subsidized them to come onto the shopping program. And what that did was that enabled a whole bunch of marketing agencies to quickly build a fly-by-night comparison shopping service, which just had products and prices listed on a web page, to list in Google Shopping so that they could get the subsidy or the rebate, whatever it was, from Google. So my first feeling is that the remedies essentially imposed and then implemented by Google were and are not successful because they've had many unintended consequences, and they haven't leveled the playing field. And in fact, I think it's important to note that the original complainants in the case, a husband and wife team who started a company called Foundem, have actually gone out of business in the interim. So in all this time that it took to investigate and implement any kind of remedies, the business that laid the original complaint is no longer. And I think that's very important. It's a very important point because it means that something didn't work. It didn't go right, and it didn't level the playing field. And in fact, it probably entrenched Google's dominance and entrenched their monetization ability of the shopping unit. So in terms of remedies, we've come up with 3 potential proposals in order of maximizing competition. So the first one is more competition, but not as much as the second one, and not as much as the third one. So the first one is basically that the CSS program that's been implemented in Europe should just be extended to South Africa. So they should just turn on South Africa as a country in that CSS program. That would be the lowest hanging fruit, and that could start tomorrow, right? They already have all the technical capability. It's all controlled through Google Merchant Center, and that would be really easy. But as I mentioned, that would not solve the problem, because I can guarantee you tomorrow there's going to be a marketing agency who goes out to 10 of its e-commerce clients and said, guys, I need your products and prices. Can you send them to me in an Excel spreadsheet? I'm going to build a quick website, and we're going to go list on Google Shopping. And it will have very unintended consequences. And so I do not believe that this will be a successful remedy. And I think there's a great opportunity here for South Africa to kind of think about this from a different perspective and use this as an opportunity to showcase what we think can happen. The second proposal is for me the most interesting, because if I put myself in Google's shoes and I put myself in a CSS's shoes, I think there's a moderately balanced opportunity here to level the playing field, but also maintain Google's requirement to monetize their shopping ads. So what we are saying is that on any particular search that returns shopping search results, so where there is a shopping ad unit shown, no more than 33%, so no more than 1/3 of the visible ad listing, so visible on the screen, should be monetized, right? So that means that anyone who is advertising and paying to bid for placement in a shopping ad unit should not be able to bid for more than 1/3 of the visible listings. So if there are 3 on the screen, only 1 of those would be monetized. If there are 6 on the screen, 2 of those would be monetized. And what we're saying is that the rest should be organic. So the rest should be based on relevance. And what that means is that, number one, Google can have its cake and eat it, and it can have commercialized search results in the first third of the visible listings. But everything else should compete on merit. And merit is based on the relevance of the listing according to the search term that's searched. Very similar to the blue links in organic search, these are essentially blue links for products. So they would be ranked according to their profile and how they meet what Google determines are relevance for product images, prices, product ratings, inventory availability, sale criteria, all of these kinds of things that would influence the ranking of a retail product. Those should determine how the second third of the visible listings are ranked. And that essentially is the crux of the solution, which in my mind is generally fairer than the CSS implementation in Europe. So I'm just going to go to the third one, and then I imagine you probably have some questions on this. I want to showcase some examples to really visually indicate how this would work. So this is, in green here is the first third of a visible listing, mobile on the left and desktop on the right. So out of 2.5 results, we would count the first one as monetized, and everything else organic. So these would be ranked on relevance. And you would see here indicated the service that these came from, either from Google or from PriceCheck or from any other CSS that may be available. On desktop, obviously, there would be more visible. And again, it would be limited to 1/3 of the visible listings. So in this case, there are 6 visible. The first 2 would be monetized. Now, in the monetized ad units, it could be Google or it could be any other CSS that's bidding on that position. From that point onwards, the second 2/3 are organic. They're based on relevance. And here you can see in the example, it's CSS 112, CSS 23, PriceCheck, Google. They all come up in these organic results based on their relevance according to the search term. Now, just to kind of reiterate, what happened in Europe is, and these are live listings from today from Germany. What the European listings look like are a complete failure to implement this policy correctly. So in this example, I searched for ASICS Trail, and out of, what is this, 8 results, 5 of them are from Google, which means that 62.5% of these results are Google. Not really a great solution. On mobile, 1.5 out of 3 are Google's. If we go to another example, this is even more impactful. A search for Lego, just Lego, which is a very popular search term at this time of year, yielded 5 results on desktop. 100% of them were for Google. And now, you can't tell me that there are no other CSSs in Germany that have Lego products, right? I don't believe that's true. And then a search for fidget toys. Again, maybe very popular at this time of year. 3 out of 4 results, 75% are from Google. And in all of these examples, I would just like to point out that Google has the first position in every single one of these examples.
Kevin,
running out of time.
Can we just do this? Yeah, can we do it very quickly? What the last one? Just summarize it, and then we'll go to questions. Thanks.
So the last proposal is that the shopping ad unit should remain visible, but every single listing in there should be an organic result. So none of them should be paid, and all of them should be competed on merit and on relevance. And that would be our third proposal. Obviously, there's pros and cons, which we can go through at some point in time, but for the benefit of time, I will leave it there and hand back to you.
Thanks very much. So I just wanted, just to understand from, the way that, especially, if you look at all 3 of them, actually, you would still have the unit there, it would be at the top, or as it is at the moment, so either on the side or on the top. But when you click on that item, you would go straight, where would you go? So let's just say PriceCheck was there. When you click, where would you go to PriceCheck's website with all those products, or would you go directly to that product listing?
Yeah, so I believe that the current mechanism works fine, because I believe if you're showcasing a product ad, people should be able to buy that product. I think it should be clear, though, from Google that this is one product from one shop. And then what we've indicated in Europe, if you hover over the product, it expands and you can see the CSS that supplied the listing, and you can click through to compare more offers. However, Google's kind of hidden that away. I don't necessarily agree with that aspect of it. So I think in terms of visibility, it should always be visible that this is a product from a shop, but you can still compare other products if you would wish. And I think on the click on the product, it should go straight to the shop, to the product detail page. I think that is a fair functionality because it's a shorter route to completion for the consumer. But I believe that there should be a little bit more information to show that you can compare prices if you want.
Okay, but then, I suppose what you have spoken a bit about is just the functionality and the benefits from going to a price comparison site that maybe you wouldn't be able to get from the unit. And would you be able to get those kinds of benefits if you are just clicking through?
I I think the challenge here is that this is now, after the last 3 or 4 years in South Africa and the last 6 or 7 years in Europe, this is so entrenched that it's going to be very difficult for you to remove this commercial unit, number one, from Google's psychology, from their actual business, and number two, from the psychology of consumers. And often, like anything that Google implements, actually, conditions consumers to use that and see that. So these remedies are a compromise. Again, I put on Google's hat, I put on my hat, and I said, where is the middle ground for fair competition? And I don't believe that removing the ad unit and turning into a price comparison service is going to be that feasible. There are shortcuts, though, to achieve what you would like. And that would be to have little elements on the advertisement to say read reviews or, whatever it may be, or read articles about this product. Those are very easy to implement. And again, they can just be metadata that are supplied in the feed that Google requires. So that would be a trivial execution of, that kind of additional benefit, I suppose.
And I think one of the suggestions was to have a few icons, so maybe there'd be a Google icon, there'd be a price check icon, and price now icon, and then you would press through, click through to those, and those would be ranked organically. So then it wouldn't look like the Google shopping unit, but it would still be quite visual, maybe. What about that kind of suggestion? Because you would still have all the benefits then of the price comparison site.
Yes, I think the challenge here always, again, for Google, I'm a very technical person, so I always try and think how this would be implemented technically. And I think from a performance perspective, Google's search page has always been designed to be very light on multimedia and very light on functionality and very text heavy for performance. And if you want the pages to load very quickly and very efficiently, you can't add all those bells and whistles that you would like. So I think that's a big technical challenge. However, there are ways and means to get around that. Google does include fave icons, as you saw in the eDreams presentation next to the blue links. You do have the sites icons, but I don't know if that could be repeated across 8 different results on a page or whatever it is. I think the big challenge is how Google labels the unit, because if the first unit or the first listing was paid, they would have to have their little ads label above it, and then above all the rest, it would just say, organic or ranked by relevance or, recommended for you or whatever it is.
Okay, just the last question from me. I just wanted to ask about if this were to happen, so that kind of system would work, either because it's for 66% organic or whatever, or it's completely free. In that kind of scenario, how would Price Check adjust its pricing, given the funnel effect?
I have no idea. I would love to be able to tell you what that would look like, but I think it would take an analysis over a period of time to work out what margins we wanted to achieve as a business and how we could price that into the model. Again, it's very dependent on the volume of traffic that we would get, right? Because generally, infrastructurally, we can scale linearly to kind of scale Price Check's infrastructure. We don't need to scale exponentially according to the number of customers that come. And so we would have, very significant cost savings, over time. And so our cost base wouldn't necessarily increase exponentially with the traffic. So we definitely could reevaluate the CPCs based on the traffic that we got. And I imagine just through market forces, they would go down. I think that would be just a general consequence of this, and I think it would be fair. What we would always do, though, is look at our return on ad spend that we generate for merchants and make sure that was in line with their expectations. So, yeah.
And what about bidding? I mean, is that something that would also be something you would consider?
So bidding is a very challenging thing, and it's not something that we've been successful in implementing. But what we would like to do going forward is allow merchants to have differential bids for their products, for different types of products, rather than bidding against other retailers. So they might say that we want to pay R3 per click for cell phones, but we only want to pay 20 cents per click for books. And that is basically, that's a strategy that we would like to implement. And that is, the consequence of that is that we would benefit their return on ad spend over time and make sure that, the revenue that they generate per rand spent is in line with what they expect to run their business.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you, Rahma.
Thanks, Mr. Tucker. I think it's been a very extensive presentation and also questions. So I think Rahma's covered most of my questions. So I think it's just left to thank you for your inputs. Obviously, talk of remedies is hypothetical at this stage, depending on what findings we make. But I do appreciate that you're giving it a lot of thought. So I think that would help. And we'll certainly engage with you and price check over the next few months before we release our preliminary report.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, and thanks to the panel for having us.
I don't believe our next participant has appeared on the virtual stage yet, so we'll wait for him to arrive and then we'll continue. Welcome, Mr. Mutong.
Good afternoon.
Do you mind just putting on your camera?
No.
Welcome to the public hearing. I understand you don't have a presentation for us, so
Yes.
we'll just proceed with some questions about your business and your perspectives on the e-commerce marketplace in South Africa. We understand Red Puppy is an e-commerce marketplace. So I'm going to hand over to my fellow panel member, Ms. Doris Tsepe, to proceed with the questions. And once she's finished, if I have any follow-up questions, I'll then ask those as well.
Okay, James.
Good day, Mr. Mutaung, and welcome.
Good afternoon, Doris. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
No, thank you very much to you. We really appreciate you making time to come speak to us, to give us your perspective. As James said, I know you don't have a presentation for us, but for the sake of the public, could you please tell us a bit about Red Puppy? What services do you offer? I know you are an e-commerce marketplace, but if you could just tell the public a bit more about the platform. When did you start, and what sort of business users you have on your platform? That would be good. Thank you as a starting point.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes. We're an e-commerce platform based in South Africa and 100% owned by youth. We are currently 2 people now, and unfortunately my partner couldn't join. And we focus on selling clothes, toys, and all accessories, electronic accessories. And ideally we want to work with small and medium enterprises in the country, focusing more on the local market, because we saw that there's a gap with local entrepreneurs because they don't have a formal platform. So we wanted to formalize their goods and their business so that they can come to one platform, that the platform that they can trust, and then they will be able to sell their goods, because most of them, they are either based in one location and selling to the local people. So beyond their location, they are unable to attract other customers.
I was very interested in that, Mr. Mutaung. As you would know, one of the key component or terms of reference of the inquiry is to look at participation, particularly of SMEs and business owners from historically disadvantaged background, their participation on the online platform. I mean, just if you could just go a bit more on why do you think there was a need for this, for you to do this for these SMEs and the youth in particular?
Yeah, the main driver was my personal experience. So I'm based in Midrand, Johannesburg, but originally I'm from the Free State in a small town called Paul Rooks. And it's very frustrating to do any shopping that side. You have to stand in long queue, move from one store to another, and there's queue and there's a lot of people, but there's limited stores available. So you tend to spend like your whole day doing shopping, like from that personal experience. When you go shopping, you know you dedicated the whole day, and it means you are losing most of your time as a consumer, whether to spend with family or to spend with friends or do what you want to do. So you're losing the whole day as well. And also when it comes to the stores, it means they're also losing a lot of customers because some customers get frustrated when they spend a lot of time in the queue. So they end up leaving, and so it means they lost the business lost potential sales. So it was a mixture of the consumer frustration and also the business loss of sale. When I saw the opportunity to say, why can't we have a platform where we'll be able to integrate all those small business and then expose them to a bigger and a wider audience, also provide convenience for the end user. So the business get to convert more sales and the end user gets to spend as little time as possible doing their shopping, and then they get more convenience.
Thank you very much. Just remind me, if I recall, when did you enter the market? Was it the beginning of last year?
No, 2019. So, last year, 2020, when because after we launched, that's when COVID happened. Yes.
Yes, I was interested in that, just to understand the journey that you would have gone through in that period. Were you able to, what would have been the impact of that on your business?
The impact was massive, like, because everything was sent crashing. Because remember, when we started the business, we used our own money and we took some loans from the bank to complement our own money. And we did some projections, some calculations to see maybe after a certain period, maybe the business, because there was when we did the survey, there was a huge positive response for this. So we did our projection to say maybe after a certain period of time, the business will have been able to generate certain revenue which can complement some of the cost. But immediately after we launched, then there was a COVID and then level 5. It means we couldn't even generate even one sale, but the cost were there. We had incurred the cost, and then there was some running costs that we also needed to maintain in order to keep the platform alive. So now it means we're spending more money than we had planned and anticipated. So it was a massive negative impact on the business, even on us personally, because now it means we had to cough up even more money from our pocket just to keep the platform alive.
I am going to speak to you about the challenges of funding, particularly for small businesses and those owned by historically disadvantaged persons. I am going to talk to you about that, but I'm still interested in this COVID journey and lockdown. So then we had level 5, and then the restrictions then went down. Were you in that period because people were mostly shopping online? Were you then able to offer some services and see any revenues?
No.
Or how did that happen?
No. So we tried to apply for the relief fund from the government, but the requirements were very, very hectic. We couldn't even get anything because they wanted some audited results we didn't have. We were just startup. They wanted a lot of things that we didn't have. We couldn't. And for us to even, because the money that we had initially budgeted for marketing, we had to spend it to keep the platform alive. So it means we couldn't do marketing, we couldn't do anything. And remember, we just launched, so we were a little bit unknown. In fact, not little bit, we're unknown entity that time. So even if the president started to allow for the online purchase, people didn't know about us. So it was like the impact was still the same. So we're still suffering because even the money that we had budgeted for marketing, we couldn't use it because we had used it to try to keep the platform alive.
Thank you. I mean, I suppose you have gone into funding. I mean, and sources of funding, and I just want to speak broadly on that, which is, do you think that platforms of your size could actually enter market and participate and expand without funding? And what has been your experience? I heard you say, talking about having put in your money and then some loans. If you could just tell us your experience on how you went about. Was it savings? Was it angel funding? Did you approach any venture capitalist? If you could just tell us that journey.
Yeah, so remember when we started, it was just an idea. So, and most of these guys, they want a model that is working. They said, prove to us that you can make sales. So the plan was, okay, let's go back, let's try to make sales for 6 months and have something to show the investors that actually, yes, on paper, the presentation looked fine and it was up, but they said, but there's nothing tangible that you guys can show us because you haven't even sold even one item. So at least go back, make some sales, and then we can now evaluate this thing. So honestly speaking, it's extremely difficult for small players like us to enter the market without proper funding, because even if you use your savings, it can only take you up to a certain point, and after that you really need some massive investment, and there are a lot of gatekeepers as well in the industry. So we firstly have to battle the gatekeepers as well, and we also try to establish ourselves and gain the trust. And also, if you remember, the country doesn't have a good record of online shopping. There's a little bit of trust. There's still hesitance. Some customers are not trusting. Okay, before the COVID, they were not really trusting the online platform because of other things that were happening. So if you come as a nobody, it's extremely difficult. At least if you have some backing, and then people can really give you a chance by virtue of association, and we didn't have any association.
Thank you, Mr. Mtau. You said these guys who wanted, when they looked at your ideas and wanting you to prove yourselves,
Yeah.
who were those guys that you approached?
So
I'm just talking, not necessarily mentioning their names, but like categories. Was it banks? Was it family members?
Not banks, but not banks. But I tried some venture capital, and then I've tried some of the prominent guys in the industry, like not this industry in particular, but from the network that I know, some of the CEOs that I know. But and they were like, okay, this is good, but can you give us something? And I think even it was also based on their experience, because if you are CEO, you've run big companies, you get to understand some of the things better with your experience and so forth.
I guess the conversation is still linked to the first one as to your journey throughout this period with the booming of e-commerce and
Yes.
yet for a new entrant struggling to make yourself known. Where are you at in proving yourself and having the sales for 6 months to be able to go back to them?
We are nowhere close to that. I think because the challenge is, this is a transactional business, so sometimes you can go for quite some time without any transactions. And if there's no any transactions, it means there's no revenue, and there's a challenge. But what I can say is, in terms of the business, we have improved because we managed to get some suppliers, even some of the suppliers outside the SMME markets, like where we're getting our electronic stuff, which is one of the big suppliers, and some of the big players are also using same suppliers. So I can say we managed to move some few steps into that. But in terms of funding, that's where the issue is. And some of the challenges is, some of the suppliers, they will tell you that they have an exclusive deal with certain players. So it means they can't go with you again. It means you are losing some of the products, and you don't have a lot of variety in your products. So you are only limited. And the more you have a lot of products and different products, then it means you can attract more customers. Because, for example, if we're having groceries, someone might go and want to buy grocery and then see something in your website. Oh, by the way, I also want to buy my kids clothes, but here's the platform. Now, instead of this person buying only groceries, now they see that, oh, I also have a need for clothes. They can now look at the kind of clothes that you have, of which you increase your chance of converting this into sales. Because when we're using the analytics on our website, we saw that people were spending like 5 minutes on our platform, of which it's a long time to convert something to sales. And they will scroll, they'll go through to 7 or 10 pages, which was a positive thing to say. It means the type of products that we have are good products. It keeps people fascinated, wanting to see more. So those are the kind of positive that we drove in during our experience.
Thank you, Mr. Mtaung. You touched on a number of things that I did want to discuss with you, and one of them is, for any platform, you are bringing together two sides: the supplier side, yes, which are your business users, and then you are also bringing in the consumer to be able to use your platform in order to access products of these business users. Just for us focusing now on the supplier side, and you have mentioned big suppliers. There are two categories of discussion I want to have with you. Presumably the desire to be able to have larger suppliers on the platform, because, as you rightly say, they provide variety of products, yes, that then attract the consumer on the other side. So, yes, so how many do you have so far? I mean, not numbers. I mean, do you have enough, or are you still on this journey? And
no, we're still on this journey. And the other benefits that I mentioned of having big suppliers is an element of trust.
Yes.
You know, when a consumer see a big supplier on the platform, they are able to be comfortable. They're able to trust you. But if it's only small players, they still hesitate. So as much as our core business is to try to focus on a SME, and but we also need the big guys to help the business and the small guys. It's not just a binary issue of either or, but I think they complement. Even if it's just one or two big guys, and then the majority can be small one, at least it will help balance out.
So talk to me a bit. I mean, I agree with you. I do, and thank you for raising the issue of trust and how the importance of large suppliers for that purpose. You just touched on another issue, which was the second part, is when you go to the big suppliers, some of them are talking about exclusivity with the bigger platforms. Were there many of this, and which brands, and did they mention who the exclusive arrangements are with?
So mostly they had arrangement with Take a Lot, and we understand, but it's not. It means then it's not an open and firm market, and I believe sometimes we need some regulations in the market, because it creates a monopoly if it's like that, where all the big brands or the good suppliers are only in one platform. It means more consumers will trust that platform over us. The question will be, why must I go to you over to take a lot when they have a lot of XYZ and you don't have it? It's killing the market. It's actually killing the industry, and it's not. I don't think it's a fair practice. No.
And are you comfortable talking about which brands were those who told you about their exclusivity with bigger online platforms?
I'll have to go back to our records, because that was when we started in 2020, and then we can see if then we can be able to provide that information.
Thank you. Before I come to the consumer side, I just wanted to understand how you monetize on the platform in relation to your business users.
So ideally, there were two modules that we were going to generate revenue, but we had to put the other one on hold. So we wanted to have the subscriber based for our consumer, where they will pay a monthly subscription, and then from there we charge a 12% of per successful transaction. But for us, because we're trying to enter the market, we said, what, the suppliers can join free of charge. There's no monthly subscription, and then we just continue to charge the 12% per transaction. And then the other benefit that we saw, when we got one of the big guys, they have a different model. They have like a recommended retail price that they put there. So we went with the recommended retail price, and it was also the margins were bigger than our 12%. So there was no need to change that model. And the benefits of that was also, it also allowed us to give our customers discount, because remember, sometimes you'll find that the margins are 30%, of which is 18% more than what our 12% that we normally charge. So we have 18% to play around in terms of our pricing. We can do promotions, we can do discount and all those stuff. So that was one of the benefits that we saw, that having the big guys with this recommended retail price bring to us.
Just so I understand, so essentially you would retain your 12% success fee on SMMEs, but with your bigger suppliers, you would have a different model. Is that?
Yeah,
at least for those who offer it.
Yes.
And how many of those are there? I mean, not necessarily the numbers, but in order of magnitude, because this is very good for the other side of the market, I would imagine.
Yeah, so all our electronics come from these big guys. So that's where we're able to, even if we make one or two sales, it's like if we make two sales or one sale from our electronics, it means the margins we get like around 30% margin, which is, over 2% or better than, not 2%, like 2 times better than our 12%. Yes.
Which then leads me to the other side of the market, obviously, which is you've spoken about discounts as a mechanism of drawing consumers. What other marketing exercise have you been involved in order to draw the consumers to the site?
So we're able to say, if you buy an amount of 500 and more, we are able to cover the delivery fee, of which then we can get from the margin. So we're still being profitable. Unlike if we were just doing it out of that 12%, it means we have to lose some of the revenue from that 12%. But if it's from the big guys, and also even if it's from the small players, we're able to complement the loss with the margins gain from the big guys.
Thank you, Mr. Mtaung. You've just raised another issue, which is delivery cost. So anything above 500, you cover the cost, and below?
Then we'll charge you a standard flat rate of 70 Rand.
And how do you deliver the product?
So currently we deliver it ourselves because the volumes are not enough to justify getting, in partnership with those delivery companies. So unless if it's outside Gauteng, then we'll use your PEP, your Postnet, and all those stuff. But around here we do it ourselves, because we want to also have that impression of a quick turnaround time. Like, instead of going to post office for something that is in Pretoria, I can just start the car and go to Pretoria, drop the products. It means the customer now becomes even more happy.
The outside Gauteng delivery channels are quite interesting. So how would you do that to PEP? So would the supplier deliver it to PEP and the consumer fetches it there, or how would it work?
No, I'll fetch it from the supplier, and then I'll take it to PEP, and then I inform the customer that it's either I'm going to use PEP or Postnet, whichever one is closer to them. Then once I get confirmation, then I'll go and via PEP or Postnet.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you just on one of the things we heard from a lot of platforms, particularly in the e-commerce, their experiences, and I just wanted to hear your view on that, is if you take on the bigger e-commerce platform head on, competition seems a bit hard, and that the best way to deal with it is to go into like a niche market, so to speak. And I would imagine yours was a lot more SMME type, or even the products that you want to do. I wanted to find out, is that, firstly, do you think that that's the better way, or are you looking to take the bigger guys
No.
on?
I think that's the better. I've tried to take the bigger guys and I was banned. So I think the best way is to start small and go gradually. Because when we started, we did, so I used a lot of my network and the relationship that I've built. So we went massive. There were a lot of even newspaper coverages and prior to our launch. And the feedback that we were getting was really positive, and there was a little bit of a buzzword and momentum going. But after that, then our platform started getting spams attacks and whatever. So I don't know where the spam attack were from, but we couldn't. I remember we had like a month where we couldn't do anything on the platform because once we're trying to deal with the spam, the new ones are coming, the new one are coming. Then we realize, no, we don't have the muscle to fight this. So let's rather try to find another way. Otherwise, this thing's going to kill the business even before we started.
And do you know who else is in the industry is trying to offer niche, this sort of niche e-commerce solutions? Are there many platforms like that?
Yeah, the smallest one, most of them now they go via the route of Instagram, and that's not how we want, because most people, some of them, they don't trust the Instagram one. It's either they think the product is fake or the product come from Alibaba. So we didn't want to go that route. So what we wanted was something that also that's going to promote more local products, because indeed most of these products on the Instagram and whatever, they come from overseas. So we wanted to change the entire value chain to have more of our products that are made locally. And the other challenge is, like, since we are here, I just remember another valid point that I wanted to make. To when I said I think this industry needs to be regulated. Like, we tried to go to radio stations to get airtime and TVs, and the quote that we get, it was very extremely expensive. We went the billboard way, the quote we get were expensive, and I'm thinking we can't be paying the same amount of money with the likes of Take a Lot and other big players. To them it's nothing. To us, it's a major cost. There should be a model where small players are able are charged at a certain rate, so that it gives us a fair chance to stand and fight. Because, for example, if I go to Facebook and try to do my marketing more, I'll spend maybe, if I want to reach 3,000 people, I'll spend like 300, 400 a day. So I'll run a campaign for 5 days. So let's say, for out of interest sake, my target is to reach 3,000 people. I can only afford to do that on Facebook. And the challenge with the Facebook one is it reaches 3,000 people, regardless of that person is unemployed, regardless if that person is young, that person is old. But if I were to reach 3,000 people on billboards, on the highway or on the suburb, chances are I'll reach to people who are working, who are driving to work or from work, who have high chances of sales conversion, and that's where we stand a very better chance of winning. But that's where the market is closed, because we cannot afford it.
Thank you, Mr. Mtawung, on that. I mean, so other than just on marketing, other than Facebook, then which other channels do you use?
So we use the word of mouth. So I went to the traditional old one of pamphlets, but because of COVID, I couldn't get access to the estates in here, for example, in Midrand, because we went to the drawing board to say, okay, let's try to get more sales in Midrand, because there are a lot of there are over like 23 complexes here. And when I was doing my calculations, each complex has around 150 or 200 units. So it means if I can reach 23 complexes here and maybe be able to put my flyers in those units, if I can even get 1% of that, then it will be much higher than my current sales. So I can be able to get more. Because that's when I was doing my maths to say, I've got 23 complexes here, each with 150 to 200 units. And in one unit, you find that there's 2 or more people staying in there. So my chances of converting sales are higher.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mtawung. I think there are just two. I know I don't have enough time left with you. The one other thing I wanted to ask you was just if you know if there are platforms owned by historically disadvantaged businesses. Do you know? I mean, persons. Do you know if there are any?
No, not specifically. No,
You don't
not
know.
yet.
Okay.
Yes.
And in your view, do you think it's because of the challenges that you're raising that we don't have many, or you just don't know?
Yes. No. I think it's mainly because of the challenge. Because number one, to get a platform developed, it's way expensive. Where we tried to develop it locally, the codes were crazy. And I remember after we launched, we got so many calls of people saying, "Guys, how did we do it? Because we also want to enter the space." You see, and initially we were frustrated because like, why are people asking us such questions? But later on we realized that no. It's because people been trying to do this, but they realized that it's not easy, it's expensive. Maybe they thought we found a way that is much affordable so that at least it opens up the market. To enter this space is extremely expensive because you need to develop the platform. And it's not just a simple website where someone can develop it, because this is a two-phase website. It needs the consumer side and also the business side. And at the background, you need to integrate those things. And you're dealing with people's data, sensitive data, and all those stuff. So you need to make sure that the platform is secure. So it drives the cost way up.
Mr. Mutawung, I think I'm going to leave it here and thank you. I don't know if James has any questions for you, but thank you so much for your time and just illuminating us on your journey and some of the challenges you're facing. We hope to. I had hoped we would have time to discuss what do you think we could do to resolve some of those. I mean, you've spoken about some of the proposal regarding advertising and all, but I had hoped we would have more time on the others. But I suppose
Yeah, of
the
course.
technical.
I also
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I also submitted that marketing plan initially to the commission to say this is what we had wanted to do, but we are unable to do some of the things because purely of financial challenges.
Yes, but what I wanted to say is that I'm sure there'll be more engagement as we go further in this process with the technical team. But thank you for your time. I'll hand over to the chairperson now. Thank you.
Okay, I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Mutaung. I just have one question. You mentioned looking at relief funds, but have you looked at other public sources of funding? And if you have, what has been the response?
So, well, not yet. We are trying to busy working on the proposal model. So I've done some few things, and then I've sent it to some of the business guys to review, so that when we approach those institutions, we've covered all our angles, because we don't want to waste time and opportunity. Sometimes we get given one opportunity, so you need to make sure that you cover all aspects of it. And we hope once things get better with the COVID and whatever, we can start going back and approaching those institutions.
Well, I think once you do, we'd appreciate the feedback from you about whether there is funding available. And we heard, I think, from another small business, Sisters on the Move, that some of the public funds they had approached had said they weren't funding online platforms at the moment. So we would appreciate, I think, your feedback as well, because that can fall within the scope of our recommendations as well.
Yes, so we're also looking at approaching NYDA, because we're still young people under the age of 35. So we'll see how that one goes, and then we'll provide the feedback to the commission.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutaung. I think that brings this session to a close, and I just wish Red Puppy all the best, and on your journey as an entrepreneur, trying to stake a claim in the digital economy. So certainly I hope you get this moving and get some momentum behind you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And that does bring us to an end for today. We have no afternoon session. As I mentioned at the beginning of the day, we were meant to wrap up, in fact, today, but we have a few spillovers from people who either faced load shedding challenges or unfortunately had to be moved due to challenges by the panel. So Monday we resume at 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. just for 2 hours, and we're doing food delivery with Parle Eats and Driver Foods, two small local food delivery platforms. And then it's a week until the 29th, and on the 29th at 3:30 we will have Rebossa, and at 4:30 Take a Lot, and then that will conclude the public hearings. The revised schedule is up on our website, so anyone who can go and get that. And I want to thank everyone over the last 3 weeks for their participation. I think it's made a difference for our understanding especially, but hopefully also the public at large. So with that, we'll close this session and resume on Monday.